My name is Patera, and today I will be giving my oral presentation on my thesis project. And my concentrations are personal financial planning, psychology, and organizational leadership. But for this specific topic, I will be choosing personal finance and psychology. So the title of my thesis is The Effects of Consumerism. And now I'll read my abstract. This paper will discuss the critical issue of our consumerism nature when combined with a money-driven society. There are many aspects that leads a person to blindly consume with no care of their situation, such as the lack of financial literacy that would lead to making bad financial decisions, and there are also a psychological side to it, as in the need to satisfy our wants beyond rational measure. And when you combine the two, that can cause detrimental effects that could cripple someone's financial standing, leaving them with debt much bigger than they can handle. Now, the modernization of our society also plays a role in guiding us towards a consumer-driven society. But fortunately, all of this can be avoided by having the right knowledge to guide us. So consumerism has been a very hotly debated topic for a very long time. It is a universal problem that is spread across the world and is also considered a complex problem due to the fact that it has more than one solution to solve it. By approaching this complex problem with an interdisciplinary approach, we are able to speed up the process of a better understanding of the problem and conclusively come up with a solution. One of the main issues with this topic is that it is widely recognized by the general public, but most of us choose to ignore it until the situation worsens and we are swimming in debt that we can't handle. And another issue with this topic is that there are a lot of people that lacks the proper knowledge to manage their financial situations once they have reached adulthood. So taking a financial literacy class is vital for us to have a healthy financial status, and the financial literacy course needs to be more inserted within our educational system. Because if a person is unable to manage his financial needs, his life would be an endless cycle of debts that will never be settled until their retirement. Once we fall into debt, we are put in a situation that does not allow us to fulfill our life goals, and that itself can take a toll on a person. With the knowledge of interdisciplinary, we are able to break down the problem and start examining each piece to look for a solution that is exactly what I did for this topic. I looked at the financial aspect of it, and I also looked at the psychological aspect of it. And at first you might think that why would consumerism have a psychological aspect to it? But if we take a deeper look at it, it all fits together. Most of the people that falls into debt has somehow exhausted their financial resources for some, and for some, they resort to spending money that they don't really have, such as credit cards. As living beings, we all have our wants and our needs, and we have to satisfy them one way or another. And it doesn't matter which cultural background you're from or where you're from, it's all the same. As long as you're a human, no matter what, you will have your wants and you will have your needs. So our needs are something that we have to fulfill to sustain life, such as food, water, and shelter. In other words, they are mandatory to fulfill, but on the other hand, our wants are something that we don't need to sustain life, but it gives us a pleasure when it is fulfilled. This is the hole that most of us fall into and would only get deeper if it was not treated with care. Our wants, the problem with our want is that it sits in our subconscious until a situation triggers the emotion and it shows its ugly head. That is why for a lot of people, they don't even realize that they have satisfied their want, because most of the time it sits in our subconscious, so it would happen impulsively. So first, let's take a look at the psychological side of things. So there's a study that looks into the advertising industry and how it has a big effect on how we perceive these ads and eventually purchasing the brand or the item. And their argument is that the more we see these ads, the higher the chances of us purchasing them. And they came up with 3 facts about our memories. The first one being Memory contains information about products. The second one, memory takes time to operate. And the third one, memory is faster when the information has been recalled more frequently in the past. So the ad does not have to be long time-wise, but it's how frequent the ads are is what matter, because the more we see these ads, the more our brain correlates to the brand and eventually plays a role within our subconscious. And here's a quote from the article. This model of consumer demand has several advantages. First, it uses the psychological properties of memory to explain the stylized relationship between consumer demand, advertising, previous product purchases, and cost of time. This type of advertising is very dangerous due to the fact how successful it is. A lot of people fall trap into the strategy and increase their chances of spending their hard-earned money on product just because they saw the ad for the product multiple times on television or any other media platform. And there's another article that talks about how capitalist companies are now targeting the subculture of the gay men and lesbian community who have recently come out to the public. And the quote says, "The findings highlight the sociocultural role of advertising and the power of consumer myth, and illuminate the disenfranchised consumer struggles to seek public validation of their subcultural identity while evading potentially stigmatic subcultural distinctiveness." So these capitalist companies are taking advantage of someone who, in their mind, believes that they're being rejected by society because of who they are and turning it into a profit. And now let's take a look at the financial sides of things for this issue. So there's this article that's looking into the difference of how financially literate make their financial decisions by looking into bank employees with different rankings. So they did research on the high-ranking employee and the low-ranking employee. And they take a look in-depth look at how they make their decisions within their savings, investment portfolio, and etc. So the research did come with a correlation between the two. So the higher-ranking bank employees generally have a more in-depth knowledge in their financial literacy, and that did also correlate to their investment, saving portfolio, and that itself strengthens the argument that the more financially literate a person becomes, the higher the chances of that person on making smart money decisions. So there's another article that looks into two different households. One with a high financial literacy and the other one with a low financial literacy. And they compare the two and see what sets them apart within their financial decisions. So the article looks into the two family and compare how they manage their expenses and what they do with their money. Either they spend it or do they invest it. And the article says, the findings also indicated that households with a higher financial literacy had a better chance of receiving a positive investment return, suggesting that higher financial literacy may result in a better financial outcome. So with the knowledge of financial literacy, we are able to invest our money and earning a profit in return instead of spending it on things that will lose its value over time, and conforming to the consumerism culture. So as you can see, it is critical to be financially literate and being able to distinguish between our needs and our wants, because it helps us in making smart money decisions and not fall into the trap of consumerism and have a ton of debt within our hands. The problem is that our society does not put a heavy enough emphasis about consumerism within our culture and what are the things that we can do in order to prevent it from happening to us. So by understanding how these capitalist companies play with our minds so that we purchase their product is one of the steps that we have to take to slowly move away from the path of consumerism. Another big step would be to increase our financial literacy so that we can invest our money and start building on our financial goal for the future. Smart investments and managing our expenses is one of the most popular ways for us to build our wealth. and courses in regard to financial planning will provide insights on those subjects. And from what I've gathered, the culture of spending and consuming also leads back to the idea of social status, because how our society has been shaped in the past. There are also a lot of cases of people winning lottery, big money lottery, but would eventually lose their wealth within a short amount of time, and the cause of that is because of bad money decisions. Too much spending and not enough investing. There needs to be a balance between the two. Spending your money on the things that you like is fine as long as there's a limit on the frequency of the purchase and how much does that purchase cost you. Because a lot of things will lose their value over time and would eventually become worthless after it's purchased in the end, and it would leave you with nothing. So there's a way that we can combine the two concentrations and satisfy both of them, and the common ground would be first create a long-term and short-term goal of what we want to do with our money without the cost of bankruptcy or bad money decisions. Second, we have to create a checkpoint within these goals so we can keep track on getting to the final destination. And lastly, we have to stick to these long-term and short-term goals until it is completed. And by doing this, we are carefully planning our financial decisions, but also satisfying our needs at the same time. And you don't really have to take a college course on how to manage your finances, but it's obviously a big plus in my opinion. In order to be financially literate, all it takes is some research, or if you have the financial resources, you can hire a financial advisor to manage your finances for you. So the end goal of this is not to fall into the trap of consumerism, because what it can do to your financial well-being. Knowledge and self-restraint will go a long way in this matter. Getting back up from a financial breakdown it's not an easy thing to do. So it is best to prevent it from happening in the first place. And understanding how the culture of consumerism works, is imperative for your financial well-being. So in conclusion, consumerism is a complex problem that needs more awareness to begin with. It is a problem that has caused a lot of people and their financial well-being from overspending their money on the things that they do not need. The lack of knowledge on the subject and how our society works is a big chunk of why the problem exists and keeps on growing as the time goes by. The educational system does not inform kids early on the importance of being financially literate and informing them that we live in a society that runs and feeds off monetary value. So not a lot of people are aware of the power of having an interdisciplinary understanding on a complex problem. It broadens up your point of view on the matter, and it significantly increases your chance of actually coming up with a solution to the problem itself. Before, I wouldn't have put psychology or personal financial planning on the same table, but after encountering this complex problem, it all made sense. We are wasting our planet's limited resources to make things that is not necessary for us, and by purchasing it, we are supporting the cause. And if this trend continues, there will be a time when there's nothing left for us to take from our natural resources. That is all for my oral presentation. Thank you for watching.